Good evening and welcome to Texas Ring of Fire. We're running a very short ship with RB having the night off and Jose having the night off with a family duty. But we got to talk Houston Dynamo, and I brought in my good friend Edson, who has been previously lived in Houston. Previously been part of at least two Houston podcasts, The Peel and Generation Orange. And I'm not sure if there was another one because I know you did two stints with The Peel, if memory serves me correct.
And Mente Futbolera in Spanish.
Okay, in Spanish. So three podcasts with the Houston Dynamo. Also long-term down in the Valley host with USL, RGV, Toros, and we won't talk about RGV, Edson. If we're going to talk USL, we'll talk the champs, San Antonio. We won't even talk El Paso because they're sitting outside the playoff spot as well. But to me, like I said here, it's going to probably be a short one here where we'll probably mainly talk about Houston, which is kind of odd for this show because we have a Dallas host and an Austin host. So this will be kind of, since they're not here, we'll give Houston all the love for this episode here. As always, Texas Ring of Fire is on Goals TV, and it's free to join, free membership. The code is FIRE, F-I-R-E. And like I said, if you go on to goals.tv, a lot of creators from Houston, Dallas, Austin, obviously, all over MLS and even international soccer. And like I said here, if you use that code FIRE, you can join for free for that here. And it's great content. I know Jose is trying to, have it as the kind of Netflix of, U.S. soccer or just soccer podcasts and video blogs here stateside, for that here. So I know Jose puts a lot of work into it. So if you can try to support him because he does a great job on the show here. And, like I said here, support Texas Ring of Fire, which you can follow on Instagram at TX Ring of Fire, on Twitter at Texas Ring of Fire, and YouTube, obviously, Texas Ring of Fire 8778 for that here. But let's talk about the star of the show. First of all, Edson, you were at the Dallas and Houston match, but the match prior to that, I saw you online celebrating a little bit with the second Open Cup for Houston, if memory serves me correct, in the last 5 years, if my math is correct, because I think it was 2018.
That is correct.
The last time they won in little CopaTejas, a little Texas Ring of Fire. Despite all the struggles of Houston recently, they are still the last club to have won a cup before Dallas or Austin. So congratulations to Houston. As a Dynamo fan that I know you are, can you tell me kind of the feelings of it and kind of your thoughts going in against Inter Miami? They were down Messi, which we kind of knew going in. But to me, it's still a great accomplishment to go on the road and win a cup.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, going into that match, I was really worried because I remember when it was first announced that there was the possibility that Lionel Messi was going to miss the game. It always seemed to me like, knowing Tata Martino from the Mexican national team, it almost made me think like it was some sort of like he was trying to play mind games with Houston, right? So I even put on Twitter, don't look too much into this. This could be just some sort of mind games to try to play on Houston. But I knew that without Lionel Messi, the Dynamo would have a better chance of getting a result. I don't know what it is about the other players, but it really seems to me that when Messi is on the field, is like it brings their 150%. Because when Messi is not on the field, it's like a completely different team. And so right off the bat, and considering the previous games that Inter Miami had played, without Lionel Messi. I know the game that I watched was the game right before, which was their game against Orlando City. It really, like, Inter Miami really wasn't a very dangerous opponent, without Lionel Messi. But I was still very cautious, despite they ended up being confirming, that Lionel Messi was not going to be in the game. I was still very cautious about, going in with, we've got this in the bag kind of thing, because, with Ben Olsen, being for the first time with Houston, this is his first season. A lot of players being new. The fact that you're playing on the road at a full Inter Miami stadium, I really felt like maybe that would kind of bring the match a little bit more equal. But in the first couple of minutes of the match, right after, I think it was like the first 15 minutes, there seemed to be like Inter Miami was trying to instill their momentum in the game. But once the Dynamo were able to kind of like control them, and it really see that from then on in the first half, the Dynamo were able to find a way to control the match, to control the tempo, to kind of take advantage of a very lackluster defense by Inter Miami. They had, I think, a minimum of like 2-3 opportunities right in front of goal that were either saved by Calendar or the shot just wasn't on target, right? So once I started seeing that dominance, I feel like the goal was bound to come any minute now. And eventually it did with Griffin Dorsey's first goal. And I think one of the key things about that first half was that Inter Miami really did not bring a lot of heat offensively. So that gave the Dynamo, with, I believe it was Franco Escobar, and Griffin Dorsey. No, hold on. It was Griffin Dorsey, and I think over here,
you had a tour, and then Carrasquilla.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is that it gave those outside backs the freedom to move up, because they knew that really Inter Miami, they were just going to go for the long ball, trying to find either Campana or even Facundo Farias, and they were able to control that really, really easily. So they gave those outside backs an opportunity, which makes that they had more men on Inter Miami's field, right? And so Griffin Dorsey scores the first goal. They call a penalty in favor of the Dynamo, which Bassi is able to put it into the back of the net. And I really felt a little bit calmer. But in the back of my head, I always had the idea, this whole saying in Mexico where it's like, el 2-0 es el marcador más engañoso. 2-0 is a very, very, it's the worst scoreline, right? Because you get too confident. And in the second half, I think the key was for Inter Miami bringing in Joseph Martinez.
Well, I think the first half was total dominance by the Dynamo. When you look at the stats, it was, possession was 50-50, but Miami only had one shot, and it wasn't even on target, where Houston had 18 shots, 5 on target. You had, 2 big chances, one that they did miss that you were talking about. But to me, and you talked about it, going up the wings, the fullbacks, Noah Allen and Yedlin just got destroyed that first half. And Yedlin got called for the penalty on I forget who I don't think he fell.
I want to say it was on Quiñones.
Was it? Yeah, it would have been Nelson Quiñones.
It was on Nelson Quiñones.
So, but they destroyed them on the wings, and really, to me, took them out. Where as a neutral, you could tell Houston wanted it and wanted it a little bit more than Inter Miami did. Which was kind of odd going in, because I don't think you would have thought that with the talent that Inter Miami's brought in. And they did play some of the big names. Messi was out, yes, but they still had a solid lineup for that here. And it just, Houston just had a good lineup with Olsen. The second half, it kind of flipped. where, Houston probably got a little bit more defensive. It was 32% possession, shots 11, 11 total shots, 4 on target, and then Houston only had the 1. But outside of a late goal by Joseph Martinez in the 90+1, I really didn't think Houston was.
And let's be honest,
in danger unless they made a mistake, which, Houston can make mistakes at times.
And let's be honest, that goal came about because they had recently brought into the game Tina Chadebe.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times when you bring in a defender so late in the game, you're changing formation, especially with Tina Chadebe, coming off of an injury. He wasn't going to be at 100%. So you could totally see in that play where Tina Chadebe was a little bit out of it, and Joseph Martinez was able to take advantage of it to, dribble the ball away from him and able to shoot the ball, past Tarbell. But I think other than that, it was a very smart game by the Houston Dynamo. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think there were times at the very end of the stoppage where maybe either Hector Herrera or somebody else that had come in, I think Franco as well, and Smith. I felt like they could have played it a little bit smarter. I feel like maybe there was times where Houston cleared the ball, lands on Hector Herrera or somebody else, and they try to go for a quick pass to I don't know who, so they give it back to Inter Miami instead of trying to dribble it, trying to find a foul, or at least dribble it all the way to the corner flag and kind of waste some time there, right? But I think at the end of the day, they played the game intelligently, and they were able to get the silverware back to H-Town.
Yeah, like I said here, to me, all credit goes to Olsen, and I'll admit I wasn't 100% positive on the hire just because of his background.
Me either.
But year one, and it's been a success, you'd have to say. And the Houston ownership has brought in quality players. I think they still can bring in more, especially to create some more depth. But to me, if you're a Dynamo fan, being able to win the Open Cup, to be able to qualify for CONCACAF Champions League next year is a huge accomplishment that I think if you would have asked Dynamo fans, at the start of the season, hey, do you think this is realistic? Most probably wouldn't have said that they would have came out as Open Cup champions. They were probably hoping for a deep run, but I'm not sure how many fans or pundits would have actually picked Houston to win.
Yeah, I think. Cup. I really think that a lot of pundits and even fans themselves, including myself, I have to include myself too. We really didn't think much of that. Ben Olsen was going to make such a huge difference, from last year to this year with the Houston Dynamo. I put on Twitter that one of the things that that I was really surprised was the ability of the Dynamo to maintain the possession, the quick passes is like very beautiful, free flowing, passes, to try to build up an attack. It reminds me of Tigres of back if Tuca Ferretti's prime in his third stint back in 2011, 2012. It was that Tigres that had that dominated possession, would string a lot of passes and would still, find a way to be able to create some opportunities right in front of goal to get the wins. Another thing that I was kind of surprised as well was how well defensively Houston Dynamo is now compared to previous seasons, and I think it's got to be the biggest key because with this whole thing at the beginning of the season with Sebas Ferreira, there really was a lot of questions on who was going to lead the attack. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fair to say that Houston would not be in this situation. And I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but Houston would not be in this situation of winning the Open Cup and making it to the playoffs had it not been that Ben Olsen was able to muster up a solid defense despite not having for a long time a true number 9, whether it was because, Sebas Ferreira didn't fit his system, or Sebas Ferreira was, too lazy, like he didn't pan out, when he was brought in for X and Y reason. But at the end of the day, somebody else comes in, steps up, like, Griffin Dorsey and Alberto Carrasquilla, and even Hector Herrera as well, to get the necessary goals, because they know that the back line is gonna do their job, and it gives them everybody confidence, despite not having a true number 9. It gives everybody confidence that, okay, let's just do what we need to do, and because our defense has our back. It is no coincidence, and it's no luck that Steve Clark, if I'm not mistaken, leads the league in clean sheets.
I think you might
or
be right.
close to the top.
Check on that here real quick here on the stats here. So speaking of clean sheets, 12. He's got 12 with Stephen Fry from Seattle, 12. Cincinnati goalkeepers got 11. Celentano and Soros from Montreal, CF Montreal, has 11 as well. So you are correct. And I will admit, I thought Clark was a weakness. Tells you how well I know the Dynamo for that here. I thought with the upgrades that they had, I would have liked to seen the Dynamo bring in a higher quality goalkeeper. But the defense in front makes a huge difference. We've seen that in I've seen that in USL. We'll use Jordan Farr as an example. When he was with Indianapolis, he was a good goalkeeper, but he leaked goals, and when you looked at his numbers, it wasn't good. He came to San Antonio, had a much better defense, and all of a sudden, he's a top tier goalkeeper.
And it's a circle, right? Because it's like, the way I see it is, when you have a solid defense, it's gonna give confidence to your goalkeeper, that, and then also, the other way around, when you've got a solid defense, and whenever the ball does get past you, and you have a keeper that has confidence and is able to get the shots, it also boosts the defense's confidence. Because when you have a good defense, and they for some reason let in like maybe one play out of the game, but it's always that one play where they get scored on because your keeper isn't stopping anything, then that brings down your defense as well, or backwards, right? When you've got a good keeper, but you've got a very leaky defense, you're going to bring that keeper's confidence down.
Correct. So the Houston Dynamo, FC Dallas, both played midweek matches prior to the Saturday match. Houston won the Open Cup. Dallas, I think, drew Philadelphia, if memory serves me correct, on the road. Drew Philadelphia on the road, and for that here. They played to a 0-0 draw. I know you were there. My friend of mine, Matt, was there. He picked up my Surge gear, so thank you, Surge, for giving it to him. I got to still pick it up from him, but at least it's in San Antonio for that here. I won't lie. I thought Houston would be a little bit sluggish after winning the title, because to win the title and then to play FC Dallas, even though it was at home, I thought that was still a little bit much to ask, even though FC Dallas was on the road as well. Came back. It is a rivalry match. Of course, you can talk to FC Frisco and the Dynamo rivalry and kind of that impact, because you've been involved with it for years. But how the match played out, it played out the exact opposite. I think Houston was a little bit unlucky not to be able to get the win. When you look at the stats, Houston had 17 total shots, 5 on target. Dallas only had 4 or 2. The XG, and I know the XG is not perfect, but 1.56 to 0.33. To me, when you look at everything on the match, I watched a lot of the match, and it seemed like Houston was always on attack, but it was just one of those nights where Paz is a great goalkeeper. I don't think anybody will dispute that for FC Dallas, but it ended 0-0, and Austin FC won the MLS CopaTejas. I know you and I follow the USL CopaTejas for that here. It was probably in my opinion the worst way for a team to win CopaTejas, because Austin had one good week where they played Austin and didn't play Austin. They played FC Dallas and then Houston in 1 week, and that happened to be a week that Austin was performing good, and the rest of the matches were draws for that here. So Austin wins it based on that 1 week. I know people were upset about the third games not counting because Austin lost both of the, to Dallas and Houston. And, just to kind of let people know, the rules were set and agreed by the supporters group presidents and the CopaTejas board. It wasn't Austin, wasn't directed or favored any team for that here. I'm sure in the off season they'll review kind of the process here, just because normally when you win CopaTejas, it's something that you can kind of celebrate, but there was really no celebrating in Austin. There was really no celebrating, nobody, in fact, people were kind of jeering or teasing Austin, I guess is probably a better word of saying, on winning CopaTejas. But you were there at the match. Kind of your thoughts on how Frisco and Houston played out for you. Since Jose's not here, I'll use Frisco because I know that's how you know who you're talking about here for that here. But your thoughts on the Dynamo and FC Dallas, FC Frisco match?
I think for me, I had similar thoughts going into that match. I honestly felt that, for lack of a better word, the Dynamo were still going to be a little bit buzzed from the Open Cup match. Obviously, having to travel wasn't going to give them enough opportunity to get some rest, especially since the match was a final, was high intensity, especially at the end. Because when you don't have the ball, you
work harder. Yeah.
You work harder, right? Running behind the ball. And I feel like it really shows this really shows like how well fit the Dynamo team is. Not just the typical starters, but also your bench players, like a Brad Smith, like an Ivan Franco, like who else?
Well, to me, Hector Herrera,
and all of that just goes to show that they can still play at a high intensity despite playing a midweek match. How many times have we seen teams where they have a midweek match and it's like, and the Saturday match are like, oh no, like you. Just ask my Toros, right? I know this is an MLS podcast, but that's basically how the best I can explain it, right? Where they have to put in like 7 or 8 different, bench players because the typical starters don't have the fitness yet to handle two games in a week, right? So it was also very high intensity. They had a lot. The Dynamo had a lot of opportunities on goal. I think in total they had 7 or 14 or 17, if I'm not mistaken. 17 total shots, 5 on target. But to me, I think as the 30th minute of the first half came on, I already had the idea that this was going to be one of those typical matches where the Dynamo was going to dominate, but the ball was just not going to go in. And even Dallas, they really didn't have a lot of clear opportunities. I think they only had four total shots. And I think there was, outside of maybe one that was saved by Clark. It was total dominance by the Houston Dynamo. I think I expected more out of Dallas going into the match. I thought it was going to be a little bit more equal in that aspect, but it really felt that the Dynamo's weakness at times, especially in the first half, was those long passes from Paz all the way trying to find either Ferreira or Velasco because the Dynamo was so far high up. I think they even had one clear opportunity that they missed, because the last man was Brad Smith, and Ferreira was able to get past Brad Smith, but I think Teenage Hadebe was the one that came in, and stopped the play right as he was entering the 18-yard box. But I think at the end, I was at the press conference. I think Teenage Hadebe mentioned that, yes, they were not happy with the result. They really wanted to get the win. But they knew right off the bat that they couldn't mope around with this result. They had to turn around, and they had Montreal to think about, and even Ben Olsen as well. He mentioned that he really did not have any complaints about his team outside of making sure to get those shots into the back of the net. I even asked him if there was something else that he thought that maybe he felt that they could improve. But he pretty much told me that the team was looking good in his eyes on what his idea for this team was, to the point where he said, at this point late in the stage, you can't change, because you already have to have your ideas plastered on this team, So overall, I think the game was really good. It was very entertaining. But I'm pretty sure that had I not been at the stadium, they would have probably won. Hashtag Edson curse.
The Edson curse is back.
At least it didn't lose.
Well, speaking of Montreal and Club de Foot Montreal, Dynamo drew in heartbreaking fashion. They got an early goal early. In what was it, the 10th minute by Artur. Beautiful goal for that here. Held on, and then pretty much the very last kick, because it was 90 plus 6 within 6 extra minutes. At 90 plus 6, Lassie Labrian, and I'm sorry if I chopped up his name. It was very fortunate, in my opinion, for the ball to kind of fall right to his feet after the Dynamo tried to clear it. He was outside the box. 3 defenders were around him. The ball bounced up, but bounced perfectly where he ended up inside the box. The 3 defenders were outside the box, and he put a great shot in. Last kick of the game to draw points. CF Montreal's also pushing for the playoffs, so it was points that they needed. Houston does clinch a position in the MLS playoffs, but if they would have got those 3 points instead of being at 45 and in 6th place, they would have been in 4th place, 1 point behind LAFC at 47 points. So obviously that was an away match. I'm not sure if you saw it or if you just caught the highlights, but 3 matches, 7 days, 1 cup, 2 draws. It still probably got to leave a sour taste on how they lost that match. But I think if you look back, on the week for the Dynamo, you'd have to say it was a success. Clinching playoffs, which I don't think a lot of people had. Dynamo did. I thought they would be in the neighborhood 8th, 9th position for that here, because I did like the Dynamo off season. I didn't think I had them 4th or 5th, which I think is probably where they're going to end up with, depending on how they finish the season. But your thoughts this week overall, and anything that you want to add on to the Montreal match?
I think for me, with the Montreal match, I was able to watch some of the minutes while the Toros game was on, and especially at the end, when the Toros game ended, I switched again to the Dynamo match. I think the biggest key for me was there's this whole thing about the fact that the last minute also contains 60 seconds, and you got to maintain your. Doesn't matter how tired you are and all of that, you have to try to maintain your focus as best as you can. And I think for me, it all starts with an uncomfortable clearance by Ivan Franco.
Correct.
Which, any other clearance, I felt like if I might be mistaken, but it really felt like maybe Ivan Franco could have had an opportunity to maybe chest the ball and then clear it off with his foot to try to clear it a little bit farther than just right outside the box.
I think if he clears it to the third line, the ref blows the whistle.
Yeah. And so there's one thing of, where it's the mental fatigue. I kind of took a toll on the Dynamo right at the end. And then honestly, it's one of those things where, because everybody's so far inside the box, there is no midfielder there to take care of those rebounds. Because if you look back at the play, you've got, I think you've got all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You've got everybody's inside the box.
Yes.
Right. And the only one that kind of stays a little bit close to the 18-yard box is Bassi. But Bassi's in the middle, and the clearance is out towards the corner of the 18-yard box. So, and then the closest one was Franco himself. So that gives this player an opportunity to, receive the ball, try to figure out what he's gonna do. Like you mentioned, he tries to take he tries to dribble past 3 players, gets a lucky bounce. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's the end of the game. What have I got to lose, kind of thing.
It was wide open at that point. He had a clear shot. I won't say clear, because there were many defenders and other Montreal players in the box. But the Houston goalkeeper didn't even move just because of where he placed the shot. It just, once he got past those 3 defenders, basically he could kind of pick where he wanted to go, and obviously he's a quality MLS player, and he buried it, which is
plus everybody was blocking him right in front of him.
Yeah, correct. So it's it to me it's a little bit unlucky for that here, but like I said, I still think for the week you take it. A cup win. Obviously, you would have liked the win against Dallas. And a draw on the road against Montreal, who is a quality team. So let's not let's not forget that Montreal's in the 9th position for their battling New York City and DC United and Red Bulls, and I guess even Charlotte for that 9th playoff spot.
Yeah.
And I guess you got to include Inter Miami, but I don't. If Messi's out, like some are saying, even though MLS won't confirm it, so that way they can still sell tickets. Oh, did I say that out loud? For that here. To me, it's a quality road win. It's one of those that probably feels like a loss to the team right afterwards. But I think when you look at it, at the macro level for the week, 3 matches in 8 days, I guess it would be, is hard at any level, and especially when you got a cup final, a rivalry, and you're going international. And I know Montreal's not, kind of going to the Northeast, but still it's long travel.
It's a long trip still, anyway.
Yeah. So, but to me, for the Dynamo, I thought they did well. Congrats, as Arthur Bossart said, who also said the favorite show in the world. I know RB's out tonight, so sorry, man, for that here. And Jose's out. I think Jose ducked, to be honest with you, because he didn't want to talk about about his FC Dallas. Speaking of FC Dallas, and first of all, we want to we talked about the match that they had. They were supposed to have a match last night. Unfortunately, there were weather concerns, and from some reports that I've saw on social media, some fans got hit with some debris from the stadium and stuff. I think the O in
I saw that
the Dallas sign fell on somebody. So hopefully that individual. I know the post that I saw, he was like, "Hey, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to feel it a little bit more." So hopefully he is okay. FC Dallas, reach out to him. Last post I saw, and I don't follow FC Dallas a whole lot, but in that specific individual, he did make a comment that nobody from the team had reached out to him, which I thought was kind of odd. But hopefully FC Dallas does reach out to them, and hopefully everybody's safe up in the Dallas Frisco area for that here with the storms. And I know they had some storms again this morning, so it'll be interesting when MLS makes up the match against Colorado. For that here. Speaking of Colorado, to kind of turn to Austin, they defeated Austin FC 1-0, and the Austin FC fan base was pretty down, I'll just say, putting it nicely. But Austin FC did get a 3-0 win over DC United yesterday, which keeps their playoff chances alive. For that here. So looking at the playoffs for out west, you got St. Louis, expansion team that's won the West. Seattle is in second at 49, LAFC 48, Salt Lake 46, Vancouver 46, Houston 45. All 6 of those teams have clinched playoff spots. Portland at 43, San Jose at 42. FC Dallas at 41, but FC Dallas and Salt Lake have only got 31 points compared to most teams have 32, so they've got a game in hand. Austin FC is still outside the box, or outside the playoff line or the play-in game at 38 points for the here. So that makeup game for FC Dallas against Colorado could be huge in determining that if they're able to reschedule that. And then, Austin at 38, Kansas City at 38, Minnesota at 38 points. And, I guess you could put Galaxy still in there at 35, but that's a lot of teams to jump. But for Austin FC, looking at their schedule for that here, they get LAFC at home. I think that's a Saturday night game. And then Sunday at San Jose, or the 21st, not the 14th, the 21st. At San Jose, so not an easy place to finish on the road, but 2 matches where if they can get by LAFC, it puts them in that conversation for the final playoff spot. I still think it's an outside shot. For Dallas, they're a team that I'm kind of disappointed in on how they're finishing the year, but if they can turn it around and sneak into, especially in the top 7 spots, can do it. They get Dallas, or not? They don't get Dallas. Dallas gets San Jose on the 7th, and then the 21st they travel to LA Galaxy. So Dallas, to be honest with you, controls their own playoff spot, and then they have the makeup game against Colorado. I'm not sure what's going on the 14th. I'm assuming that's probably an international break for that here. I'm assuming that's probably why they're off on there. Here, I'll have to double check that. But Dallas has that game in hand for that here. And then Houston's final match is I'm trying to see if they're going to be able to improve their position. Houston gets Colorado and then at Portland. So you would figure that they're going to be able to get the victory against Houston. And then at Portland, which is never easy, they're in the 7th slot, 2 points back of Houston. So your thoughts on how Houston finishes out, and could you see Dallas letting Austin pass them up into the playoffs, or you think Dallas is pretty secure on making it?
I honestly think that. I honestly think that right now Austin is in such a bad of a shape that I don't think they'll be able to pass FC Dallas. I really think that the FC Frisco are going to be able to kind of hang on in the last matches to be able to stay in the play-in. I don't know. Like I said, I don't follow Austin FC a lot, but from what I can tell, they really have a lot of issues that they haven't been able to actually been able to fix. And honestly, as far as the Houston Dynamo, I really think that Colorado, they can probably get a decent result. Mm-hmm. And I think against Portland, I do think that 5-0 game, I think, was a big outlier. I don't think it's going to be a repeat performance. I think Portland's going to learn from those mistakes. And so I really think that at least we can probably get 4 points. I think if we can draw Portland, especially on the road, I think it would be a very good result and would at least give you some sort of a momentum, going into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I think those are my thoughts. But yeah, Austin. I mean, Austin is in shambles right now, in my opinion.
To me, and this is the reason why I think it matters. If you figure Seattle, LAFC is most likely going to finish 2-3, depending on how they finish. If you're a Houston fan, you want to try to get into that 4-5 range there, where you either get Salt Lake, Vancouver, whatever combination of that, whether it's at home or away. Mm-hmm. I think those are more doable wins than having to go play at LAFC or go play, up in Seattle, especially when it comes to playoff time, because Seattle historically has been very, very tough to do. So it'll be interesting. Edson, any final thoughts? Thanks for coming on and kind of helping me out, especially, kind of celebrating the Dynamo. I know it's something that we're trying to find a Houston, creator to kind of help fill that role. And I'm not saying it's going to be you, but thanks for stepping in and kind of filling that role, especially on a night or a week that Houston had where, we get to celebrate the Dynamo winning a cup, winning the U.S. Open Cup. It's a great accomplishment and something that, I think, fringe SAFC fans that lean more Houston were kind of cheering for. Obviously our friends in Austin and Dallas probably weren't cheering for you guys as often, but I think it's great. As I work with unofficially the CopaTejas, and to see a Texas team do well in a cup competition, and especially where you get the ability to play CONCACAF Champions League next year, I think is number one. It's important for the fan base. To me, it's important for the club, and it's great for soccer here in Texas, where we can point to clubs that have had success both on and off the pitch for that here. So, do want to thank you for coming in. Any final thoughts that you have for that here? If you want to talk anything USL, if you want to talk about my SAFC, and how we're going to repeat, or through
there it is. There it is, everybody. He was like, he was just holding it in, trying to bring up SAFC. But no, I want to take my time for my final thoughts. I mentioned it last week in the Mente Futbolera show, and that was that this victory, this of getting the Dynamo to win the Open Cup and making it to the playoffs after 6 years. I want to give a huge shout out to everybody that was a part of the Dynamo Fans for Change. Mm-hmm. because I think they were key in getting the front office to know on a face-by-face basis how the Dynamo fans felt, and that they were not happy with what was happening with the team, the mediocrity of the team at that time. They were pushing for changes not only on the field but also, off the field. When it comes to stadium, when it comes to marketing, and all of that. And I'm not saying that they were, directly responsible for, Ted Siegel to come in and make all these changes, but at least, the fact that they were able to, they took the initiative to be vocal, to let them know what they want changed, that this is not just a market that they can come in, do whatever they want, and, nobody's going to care. Right. So I want to give them a huge shout out. Honestly, I think they deserve it. They deserve to celebrate. Every Dynamo fan deserves to celebrate. But I think for them, it feels a little bit more special because you could say that, they put in their grain of sand to help the Dynamo kind of guide itself in the right direction now. So.
Yeah, and to me, huge credit. I know I followed you with the Peel and with Sean in Generation Orange, and Victor with the Striker Texas, and old soccer guy with
Foxtrot
with Noodle Time, yeah.
Noodle Time,
yeah. With
I was actually talking to Christian Putayas, in the game against Dallas and during halftime. I was talking to him and I told him exactly that. I felt so proud that nowadays the Dynamo fans have so many options.
Different options, yeah.
To listen to podcasts, to articles that are independent. Back then when I first moved to Houston, it was just the Peel, then a little bit of Generation Orange, and now you've got this new generation of content creators that are coming in, and they're pushing this community to be more active. And seeing it from the sidelines, it just feels like it just puts a tear in my eye, of how passionate this fan base has become. And and I know it was not easy for everybody that was with Dynamo Theory, but the fact that they were able to pick themselves up, restart the Bayou City, Bayou City Soccer, and grown also. Huge kudos to them. So from here to the Rio Grande Valley, I've told Christian, I told Rudy, and whoever's watching this video that is part of Dynamo Podcast, Dynamo Media in general, I want to thank you all for all of your efforts to covering the Houston Dynamo. I really, really appreciate it as a fan.
And somebody like me that I get accused of being a closet fan of all teams, it seems like.
Yeah, pretty much.
For that,
especially RGV.
There it is. So, but to me, like I said here, I know Austin has a ton of creators out there. I'm still kind of waiting to see the explosion, from FC Dallas for it here. But Third Degree is such a great show, and they do an awesome job for it here. That like I said, they are very top level. I always enjoy the shows that they do. But yeah, to me, the explosion, for Houston, it's too much to keep up with for one person. You can't listen to them all nowadays. And that goes for both English and Spanish. And I think that's a big thing, especially for you, that when you first started, it was mainly just the English side.
Correct.
For that here, I know I think you did part, with the Peel a little bit in Spanish, but not a lot.
So basically, it was mostly Trumente Futbolera, where every time we had a show on the radio in the AM, and we would take the time, to talk about the Houston Dynamo and the Houston Dash. It wasn't really podcast style. It was not after when I did Zona Naranja for a little bit that I, tried to kind of get into that Spanish market for the Houston Dynamo. Unfortunately, my time was super limited, man. So, I had to kind of like focus on what do I need to focus? And it was going to be RGV, especially that I moved back to the Rio Grande Valley. But, as I've told everyone, H-Town holds a very special place in my heart.
Right next to San Antonio. Speaking of that, just kind of a quick USL kind of update here. RGV, I hate to say it, had a tough draw in Hartford. If they won that match, I think they would have been in a lot better position playoff-wise. In fact, they might have been in the playoffs for here without that result and facing Sacramento, I think, this weekend.
They are, yeah.
In HEB Park, but I'm a big Toros fan this week. Please, RGV, pull off one of those upsets to knock Sacramento off.
I have very little faith in my defense.
So, unfortunately, RGV is looking out. El Paso, they got a draw. They're kind of swinging back up on the upswing. They're in 7th. And actually, if the playoffs ended today, we'd face El Paso, or San Antonio FC would play El Paso. I guess I shouldn't say we for that here. So, right now, 2 of the 3. RGV isn't out completely yet, but so they probably need some help to be able to get in. San Antonio's comfortably in 2nd place in the West. They do have a match against Orange County this weekend in Orange County. If they lose that match, and then if they lose against Indy, it would open up the door for either Orange County or possibly San Diego to move into that 2nd slot. The match against Indy's at home on the 14th. For that here, RGV's last home match is this Friday or this Saturday, right? Well, you guys play Sunday match.
No, so we actually close. Our last 2 games are at home.
Oh,
the game against Sacramento and against Loudoun United.
Against Loudoun. So you got back-to-back.
This is very tricky. It is very tricky for RGV because at this point, unlike last season where we were kind of at the forefront, at this same point of the season in 2022, we were ahead. We were the ones that were close to, the playoff spots. Now it's like you've got 4 different teams ahead of you that could make playoff spots, and you have to like pretty much light a candle and pray that none of the teams ahead of you, like New Mexico, El Paso, Oakland, and Monterey Bay, that none of them make it to 47 points. Once 2 out of those 4 teams make it to 47 points, you're done. It doesn't matter if you win these last 2 matches against Sacramento and Loudoun. 46. Yeah. If any of those 2 make 47, we're out. And honestly, to be honest, I think it's for the better for RGV not to make the playoffs. It has to be a wake-up call for them. Yeah. It has to be a wake-up call for them, to be honest. You can't have and hold on, I need my rant button. You cannot go from a team in 2021 that had Rodrigo Lopez, that had Vicente Sanchez, that had, all these top players, decent players on the team. You can't go from that and in 2 years go to Cristiano Francois, to, teams or players that were brought in from USL League One or Nisa and all of that, because financially the team is the investment has been less and less and less. The last 2 seasons, they kind of got away with it. Wilmer was still able to get those teams into the playoffs. This year, it really looks like they're not going to be as lucky. And,
But will it change anything, though? I don't think it'll change anything if they just miss.
I think that would be I think if that happens, Harry, I think that would be the final dagger on a lot of fans in the RGV.
Well, hope not. Like I said, I know I give you guys a lot of grief, but I won't lie. I have. This is just me speaking. There are warning signs about RGV. They're one of the few teams like Vegas that I don't think has announced 2024 season tickets, and to me, generally they do it later than other teams. I think that's backwards as an organization, and I think it raises little yellow flags about the health of the club and kind of in a way for that here. So to me, like I said here, it's as a SAFC fan, obviously, if RGV finished last, I wouldn't shed a tear for it. But as a fan of lower league soccer, I know if you miss the playoffs and you miss that playoff revenue, and RGV's, let's be honest, isn't a San Antonio FC type where they have a higher budget, anything along those lines. When we were down here earlier this year, you could tell the team has kind of pulled back a little bit, even in game day environment. Still a good show, but compared to a couple of years ago, even post COVID, it seems like every year it gets a little bit more things disappear. I guess I'll just say here, but hopefully RGV can still. Will be around next year. I'm not saying that they're going anywhere. I'm not trying to spread any rumors, but to me, it's always a warning sign when clubs, especially at the end of the year, because why wouldn't you try to let your season ticket members know, hey, this is what the season ticket price is. This is what you can get, for renewing. I know San Antonio, if you renewed, I think it kicked in end of August end of September. That's when they already took the billing and stuff like that. So it's something that I know you and I haven't discussed it because I try not to put you in that position for that here. But I wish RGV would get a little bit of a sugar daddy to help come in and help build some more of that infrastructure.
Has anybody won the Powerball yet? I might have a chance.
But because I think they are an important part of USL, for that here, and especially with new teams coming in. USL's announced a couple of teams out in California and other places here recently, but I know Texas Ring of Fire is mainly Texas clubs, but it's something that we do have to look at for that here. And I do also want to touch base because MLS Next Pro, and I know we don't normally talk about MLS Next Pro, but it is the playoffs for that. In the what was the discussion from Kansas City where they picked Austin FC, bad money or good money, something along those lines. Austin FC 2 ended up going to Sporting Kansas City, getting the victory. Houston Dynamo ended up losing to
Tacoma Defiance
4-3. And that's back-to-back rivalry, and Austin now travels to Tacoma, and I don't believe, North Texas did not make it. So in talking for MLS Next Playoffs, the last team to stand is Austin FC as they will travel up to Tacoma. And that match is on the 8th at 9 o'clock Central Time here for that here. And you can watch that on probably Apple TV, I would assume, where most of those matches will be for that here. So Dino Dos had a good year, probably a disappointing ending, losing to Tacoma, but I think last year they ended up there as well for that year.
Yeah, I think Tacoma Defiance has kind of been,
Boogeyman.
Their boogeyman, yeah, honestly.
And the fact that I know that probably tells you that I follow MLS Next Pro too much. But no, I try to be educated here. But Edson, thank you for coming on. We made it an hour. I didn't think we were going to make it an hour, but you and I stretched it out. We did cover all, the Houston Dynamo for the first half of the show, then talked a little bit about FC Dallas, talked a little bit about Austin FC for that here, squeezed in some USL content. And for those watching on YouTube and RB, if you notice the background, it's not Q2, because look who's hosting Toyota Field for that here, because normally we have the Q2 Stadium logo on there on the background. So sorry, RB, but hopefully we'll see you next week. Typically at 9:30. I don't believe any teams have matches next week, so it should be next Wednesday at 9:30. Obviously, and let me make sure I get this here. Please support goals.tv, code FIRE, free membership, lots and lots of content. Several of the Dynamo podcasts are on there. Several of the Austin FC podcasts are on there. And then as well as other USL, or not other USL, other MLS clubs and teams, podcasts that cover MLS in general. But Edson, thank you for coming on Texas Ring of Fire. Please like and subscribe, and hope everyone has a wonderful evening.